Small and medium-sized businesses are the backbone of the U.S. economy and the U.S. workforce. These businesses employ more than 130 million people in the U.S. Over the next decades, it's estimated that companies holding $100 trillion in net worth will be passed on to successors and inherited or sold in the marketplace. This is the so-called silver tsunami.
We run a restaurant business and I do almost everything but except cooking. My parents doing cookings. I feel like it's come to the point they need to retire now. But the problem, the challenge for us is who is able to take over my dad's position. It's difficult to find someone you can trust and you can rely on.
And all the companies we've recently bought, they're all my dad's age. They're the baby boomers. And many are still holding on because they don't know how to get out. Many are looking where they go next, or their family hasn't stepped up into that role. In many cases, they're not thinking bigger and they're trying to figure out transitions, and the transition usually happens way too late.
Such a significant shift in ownership, coupled with the growing prominence of private equity investment into the middle market, raises questions. What type of ownership will these companies transition into? What is the corresponding impact on the economy? How will these transitions impact the communities in which these firms are embedded?
Taking over my father's company has been surprisingly complicated, even though it's supposed to be a simple one-to-one relationship. I'm an only child, he was the only owner, I'm the only new owner. But there's still really interesting family dynamics to work through under any circumstances.
So I think when we think about transition and how it's going to impact our employees, a great deal of thought is put into every transition that's done at the portfolio level and in a leadership position about how it's going to impact the employees. Is this the right person to, on one hand, push us forward into the future and continue to innovate, and on the other, take care of our people in the way that we want to take care of them as a family business. There's a real sense of responsibility there, and we want to honor that going forward.
So what do owners actually care about in transition? One piece that comes out of our study is the fact that they care about who the buyer is. What you see here from our first tranche of owners is some level of their preference for two distinct types of buyers, that coming from the family on the left-hand side, and that coming from the employees. Other areas they're a little bit more concerned about, specifically some of the private investors or a strategic buyer, perhaps because of how it might have an implication on the culture of the firm or the strategy it pursues.
Well, a little over a year ago, we started looking at options of how we were going to transition this third generation family business. And culture was really important to me. I didn't really want to sell to private equity, and we ended up selling to a strategic, larger buyer, but a company that was an ESOP, which was really aligned with our culture and our values.
Through research and work done by the Olin Brookings Commission, we look to illuminate the world of transition. We start by codifying the strategies different investors use in this market. We then illuminate ownership preferences in transition, clarifying the trade-offs they face in choosing one path over another.
We've seen the effects of what happens to the ESOP accounts, and we see people highly incentivized when they can directly link the performance of the company to the growth in their retirement account. So I think ESOP ownership structure sets you up to have long-term motivation and incentive associated with performance.
I would very much love to move my company into some kind of ESOP structure where there's a broad level of employee ownership. It's hard to get a company to grow 10 or 15% for like the 5 to 7 years or however long it takes to make an ESOP work. So if you can like grow something for a couple of years, 10, 15% rate, and then it's steady for 3 or 4 years and have some way to exact that employee ownership transition, I would absolutely like run right into that kind of offering. I don't know what policy can do to create that, but that's what I would love.
Finally, this work clarifies the impacts of various types of transitions and the strategies pursued on workers embedded in these firms. Taken together, this allows us to identify a set of policy implications stemming from our insights, work linked to reducing friction for the owners and optimizing outcomes for those workers.
Everybody focuses on public sector businesses because it's in the stock market, we all have our investments and everything. But I think the backbone for this country has been, and many of those businesses, almost all of them started off as family businesses. But yet we are so scattered and there's not really great places to learn from other family businesses. And only just now are institutions like WashU and other institutions recognizing the power of that. And I think if we recognize that power, we can drive great change across many spectrums.